Romans 12, 1-2. Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing and perfect will.
When I was young. The other day I reminisced to when I was a lad. The games we played when we were young, our children never had. I was thought of very highly by neighbours in our street. They thought I was an angel by everyone I'd meet. There was another side to me. This angel always sought to play a prank on neighbours, but I was never caught. We all played knock-out ginger. We'd knock on every door. We knew they didn't like it, so we did it all the more. We played devil up the drain pipe, some paper we would light. They'd hear the roar within the house, gave some a nasty fright. I had an old car tire, and then I'd get inside. And as it rolled my head would spin, but oh boy, what a ride. With whip and top I'd love to play, not one car you would meet. I'd have to watch the milkman as the horse came down the street. I'd have my share of tumbles, I'd graze my knees in play. But there was always mother to kiss the hurt away. From candles lit inside a jar, a card a windmill made. The memories of paper planes will never ever fade. We never let the girls join in, a girl was such a bind. It's surprising as the years rolled on, we seemed to change our mind. The games we played so long ago, I have an endless list. I feel so sad for kids today on what each one has missed. I wouldn't change my tire, my lovely whip and top, my marbles, all my dinky toys. My life I'd never swap. 'Twas nearly 60 years ago that I played in the street. The neighbours gone, all passed away, the ones I'd used to meet. I thank the Lord when I was young, my childhood kept in trim. The life he gave me as a child, I now give back to him.
Ezekiel 23, verses 1-11. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, there were two women, daughters of the same mother. They became prostitutes in Egypt, engaging in prostitution from their youth. In that land their breasts were fondled, and their virgin bosoms caressed. The older was named Ola, and the sister was Olabah. They were mine and gave birth to sons and daughters. Ola is Samaria, and Olabah is Jerusalem. Ola engaged in prostitution while she was still mine, and she lusted after her lovers, the Assyrian warriors clothed in blue, governors and commanders, all of them handsome young men and mounted horsemen. She gave herself as a prostitute to all the elite of the Assyrians, and defiled herself with all the idols of everyone she lusted after. She did not give up the prostitution she began in Egypt, when during her youth men slept with her, caressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their lust upon her. Therefore I handed her over to her lovers, the Assyrians, for whom she lusted. They stripped her naked, took away her sons and daughters, and killed her with the sword. She became a byword among women, and punishment was inflicted on her. Her sister Olabah saw this, yet in her lust and prostitution she was more depraved than her sister.
Words of Jesus. Let not your heart be troubled. Some words that Jesus said Fear not, for I am with you. By me my sheep are fed. My peace is what I leave you. My love, it never fails. For you I went to Calvary. For you I bore the nails. For you I came into this world. For you I walked the earth. I came because I loved you, because I saw your worth. There is one thing I ask of you. My life for you I gave. Believe in me. Have faith in me. It's you I came to save.
Phew, are we sure that those words are in the Bible? What is God saying while using such words, and what can they mean to us? I wonder if you understand that the world lusts after you, and if it can get its claws into you, it would love to tear you apart and devour and spoil you. It may be that this has already happened to you, and you're looking for a way back, an alternative way of living, and especially if you're a Christian, a walk back to the Lord. These lusts, these desires are based upon what the world portrays as good things, that which are advertised to us by the magic lanterns in our homes and rooms. The world at the time of the Old Testament was no different from today. The people were driven by what they desired, rather than the desire for God and the blessings that He desires to give to our lives, which makes them whole and perfect. We are programmed, we are indoctrinated by our culture, which forces us into a mould which affects our behaviour and the lives that we tend to live. And this affects us either consciously or subconsciously. But once we're stuck within it, it can be difficult to escape from it. And our success in the world is then measured by a list which we are expected to succeed at. What is this list? What are the things the world demands of us? The first is to go to university and get a degree. That is what the world demands of us. Obtain a great job, and we must at least have £40,000 a year pay packet, and that job consumes our lives. And it's demanded of us that we receive a promotion on a regular basis. We have to have a new car every 3 years, own a home, have the perfect family with at least 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. If you're a man, you're expected to marry a blonde who is slim, who will always remain youthful, and will never put on any weight, especially around the hips and thighs. She will be a great homemaker, can cook, and appears on the Bake Off programme, looks after the children so they're a credit to you, and has a job themselves, and she will earn almost as much, if not more money than you, and never get tired, ill or depressed. Your home is something which would honour Homes and Gardens magazine and would not be out of place in Hollywood. For the ladies, you're to marry a tall and dark and handsome man who is attentive, great with the kids, has a perfect bottom, and does not develop a beer belly, and never snores nor makes other bodily noises. He can cook, not only from barbecue, and does all his own ironing, washing, without ruining the clothes, and all because you're worth it. We are to eat and enjoy all the right food, listen to the right music, and our gardens, if we have one, is something wonderful to behold. Our children are well behaved and polite in company, and they're always clean and do very well at school. You need to go abroad on holiday at least twice a year. And you'll retire at 55 and enjoy your grandchildren. Yet our God says this: do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, while none of these things I have mentioned themselves are wrong, the pressure that they can place into our lives and the expectation of the world has upon us can distort and at times destroy who and what we are and the people that we should be. Failure in the world's eyes in any of these areas, this program means that any achievement in our lives then goes unrecognised, and your life will then be perceived as failure. Yet it's not, because we fail to believe and understand that with God we can be awesome. But if we think about it, what's missing from that list? What is missing from the list that I read out? The focus that transforms our list into what it should be. The most important aspect which is not listed, which is absent. Can you guess? It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So where God is and the relationship that we should have with him in that list, which I just read out, it's a love story that's never fulfilled. Where is our love story for the church and the people within it? Where is the warrior that you should be? The great strivings that we should achieve with God? Why aren't we guardians and heroes doing the fantastic exploits that God expects us to do? We're the heroines and the children of God. Do you experience the alternative that the world has to offer you? If you do not have any light, then allow God to provide it. If your life is without love, then allow God to give it. If you want to escape the pressures of the world, then know the blessing of God's presence and he'll bring his peace. This doesn't mean that we do not have a life which is blessed. But have you turned away from the giver of the blessings of all things? And do you exclusively instead worship the world? The people of Israel were not strangers to the pressures of life. They wanted the best for themselves and their children. The trouble was they had forgotten that they were God's chosen people. And their lives, rather than being centered upon him, they centered them upon the world. They had ignored God and his command, and they were then to be a blessing to the world, rather than followers of it, which they did so poorly. God had promised them a land which they occupied. God had promised them a great and powerful future which they failed to live because they lusted after what someone else owned and had. They wanted what was second rate in comparison to what God was willing to give them, which, if they'd taken the time and opened their eyes, they would have seen the great and wonderful things that God desired to bless them with, and the wonderful life that they should have been living. They had the opportunity to live differently with God, but instead they preferred to live after the world and desire and lusted after what others had had. Those are the lands which contain nothing apart from death, deceit, deception, rebellion, emptiness and separation, because they had chosen to embrace the world, and this brought judgment upon themselves. Yet it says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. God's people always had the best of intention. However, when they were first led out of captivity, it says in Exodus 20, verses 18 to 21, when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die. Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. God came to test you so that the fear of God would be with you to keep you from sinning. The people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. While people's intentions were pure, they desired something different within their hearts. Their intention was to meet with God, but because of what they desired, they could not come near. Instead, they sent Moses, and they lost out on an experience of meeting God and the blessing that he had for them. They chose instead emptiness, which eventually they would attempt to fill with the things of the world rather than with the blessing and light and power of God. Please, do not be like those Israelites. Instead, seek out God, get him into your lives and allow him to transform you and fill your life with light and love. So the pressures of this world and that silver box in the corner, while intentions are for the best, in the end what we desire and lust after, are the very things which destroy us. What are the consequences of ignoring God? Well, we force our children to perform in school. And because of that and the pressure that they feel, there's greater absenteeism in schools today than there ever have been. We have more children on medication seeking psychiatric help than any time in history. We labour our children with debt so they can't have those fairy tale home wives and husbands and holidays and their own children. If they aspire to start to walk in the direction of the world, they have more debt, and their lives and the consequence that it brings is just misery. We force both parents to work, and the family unit is broken and suffers as they're too tired and have only the weekend for shopping and housework, and the children are therefore not purposely neglected, not because we want this, but because we're forced to, and because of that, our children spend times in bedrooms playing on electronic devices and games. We have one of the highest divorce rates in Europe, and if you promote yourself as someone who's only had one wife or husband, and you're still living together after 12 years in a loving relationship and do not desire to have an affair, then you're seen at best as someone who is weird, at worst, and treated with great suspicion. Yet, as the Church of Christ, we're supposed to offer an alternative. Our church experience together meant to be wonderful, powerful, transforming, and exciting as we know we have a personal relationship with our Creator. Men are supposed to be warriors, guardians, heroes, and they have a destiny that the world can never offer. They are protectors, guardians of the weak, and to hunt those who are lost so they may be found. Ladies, it's the same for you. Are you fulfilling your destiny within God and the blessings He desires you to have? If you have not found your destiny, it says this: therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing and perfect will. This does not mean we do not have problems. Rather, it means that the pressures of this world become irrelevant, and they're put into context, and we gain freedom from them. And instead we can embrace God's blessing, as the Israelite people knew to their own cost. They prostituted themselves to false gods, and they suffered the consequences. What is the biggest false god who is alive today? Ourselves. We hunger for self-gratification, whether it's power, money, sex, physical items, as a home, possessions, a wife, children or grandchildren. Because of our behaviour and lusting after that which we do, which does us no good, we pollute our children and live out our lives through theirs instead of building a relationship with God. And because of His presence, we live a life which makes sense, and then gain the world. People of Israel wanted these things too. They believed to get them, the way to get them was to get into bed with the neighbours and lust after their neighbours' armies, fighting weapons, cavalry, goods of war. They ingratiated themselves with their neighbours, and they began to worship their neighbours' gods, and they began to forget what God had done for them. This led them on a road to disaster. And we can be on that same road. We need to believe and understand what God has promised us. We need to understand how we should live in Christ. We need to achieve what God has commanded us to do. We must not fear being a warrior and guardian for God and do the risky and great things for Him, for the world offers us in the end little or nothing. What sort of life do you live? What sort of life do you want? What sort of life do you desire? Do you want to be free and know the one who loves you? To be free and allow the things to be yours? To be free and recognize the blessings which has been placed in your life, so your life becomes something of great desire with Christ? The alternative is to walk in the world and never be satisfied. Why not this day ask God into your life and say, Lord, enter my life, satisfy my wants, rub away my lust. Lord, forgive me for ignoring you and allow me to find my potential in you. Allow me to build a life worthy of you and with you, so your glory would be seen in this world. I draw near to you, Lord. Would you draw near to me and allow me to fulfill the potential that you have promised? So my family life would be sorted, my job would be sorted, that I'll be able to spend the time that I need to in the areas that I've ignored, dear Lord. Lord, be a blessing, so that I too might be a blessing for you. Amen.